ISO 27001 Annex A 5.34 Privacy and Protection of PII. So let's have a little look at what the standard wants, and then I'm going to give you some pointers on how you can go about implementing this. The organisation should identify and meet the requirements regarding the preservation of privacy and protection of PII according to applicable laws, regulations and contractual requirements. Okay, there are a number of areas in here. We've touched on this before. 27001 as a standard in the 2022 update to the standard did a land grab on things that it didn't need to do a land grab of, and this is one of them, right? So PII is already covered under data protection laws globally across the EU. It's the GDPR, but many different implementations of the protection of personally identifiable information. The standard itself even calls that out. It says according to applicable laws, right? So you're going to have to meet the requirements of the law within your jurisdiction. There's two approaches to this. Either you have it as part of your products, services and offerings and it's in scope for you, or you don't. The products and services that you have don't process it. If they don't process it, it's nice and easy, right? Because you just put it as out of scope and you put it on your risk register and you put the compensating controls in, but you do meet the requirements for your internal staff and the internal documentation and information, or you do process it. And if you do process it, then you need to meet the requirements of the law. This tutorial, I cannot go into the deep depths of each individual jurisdiction and each individual law. What I can say is that this is a profession in its own right with qualified and experienced people, often from a legal background, and you're going to need to engage with them. You're going to need to look at what your data protection requirements are, and in line with the requirement of this standard, implement the controls that are required to do that. This is above and beyond an ISO 27001 implementation. If I was going to do the bare minimum, if I was going to do the basics, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I can't provide legal advice and I can't comment on your individual laws that apply to you, but I would have a data asset register. And in my data asset register, I would identify all of the data stores that have PII, and I would consider a risk assessment against them and ensure that I had appropriate controls in them, treating them again as a sweeping statement as confidential data and applying all of the controls that would apply to confidential data to them. So that is how I would go about it. I would have a policy in place. I provide you with a policy as part of the ISO 27001 toolkit, the ultimate toolkit for ISO 27001 certification. I would have that policy. I would have that data asset register. I would risk assess it, and I would treat this data as confidential and put the appropriate controls in and around that. That is the bare minimum I would do. I would look on the ICO, the UK ICO Information Commissioner's website, and I would search for a DPIA, a Data Privacy Impact Assessment, and I would search for a ROPA, a Record of Processing Activity, and I would consider whether or not running a DPIA and a ROPA was appropriate for the levels of PII that I have within my organisation. So a tricky one because it's land grabbing into areas that it doesn't need to land grab in. Basically, it comes under legal and regulatory requirements, right? You have a legal and regulatory requirement for data protection, and therefore, by default, you have to implement the requirements of the law, of which this will be one. So in summary, have a policy, have a data asset register, treat this data as confidential, apply all the appropriate controls to it as if it was confidential, and absolutely seek the guidance, support, help of a data protection professional who understands both your industry and your jurisdiction and the regulations which apply to you. My name is Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja. That is it for this particular control. It's as far as I can get you. So until the next one, peace out.